The wedding was supposed to be perfect, or at least that was the story everyone kept telling themselves, repeating it like a charm against doubt. Emily watched her sister Sarah glide through the reception hall, the bride radiant in white, her arm hooked through the groom's, and for a moment she believed it too. Guests laughed, champagne glasses clinked, the string quartet played softly in the corner. It was the kind of day people captured in photographs and framed on mantels. But for Emily, it already carried a faint unease, something sharp hidden beneath the gloss. When the reception began to wind down and Sarah and her husband Daniel disappeared into the throng of congratulations, Emily slipped upstairs to the dressing room to fetch the clutch she had left behind. The room was a mess of discarded makeup brushes, tissues, perfume bottles, and half-empty champagne flutes. On the vanity lay a small leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age, its ribbon marked in the middle as though someone had been reading it only hours earlier. Emily hesitated, then reached for it, assuming it belonged to Sarah, maybe a wedding planner's checklist or personal notes. But when she flipped it open, she froze. The handwriting was Sarah's, no mistaking the looping S, the tilt of the R, but the words weren't lists of tasks or gratitude. They were confessions. Sometimes I wonder if I chose Daniel because I was afraid he would go to her instead. Emily never knew how much he once meant to me, how much I envied her place in his heart. I won the ring, but did I lose myself? Emily's throat tightened, her hands trembling as she flipped further. The entries were dated 2 years back, then one, then only months ago, each one circling the same subject. Daniel with his smile, Daniel with his ambitions, Daniel who had once courted Emily briefly before turning his attention to Sarah. It had been innocent, Emily had told herself at the time, a short-lived flirtation, no more. But here, in Sarah's own words, it was clear Sarah had known, and worse, she had built her engagement on top of it. When Daniel asked me to marry him, I saw Emily's face in his eyes. Did he ever truly choose me? Or am I just the safer option? Emily's stomach churned. The music from downstairs floated faintly through the walls, muffled applause rising as the newlyweds made their toast. Her hands gripped the journal tighter, her pulse hammering. She didn't want to read more, but her eyes refused to stop. The words bled into her like poison. If Emily ever knew the truth, she would never forgive me. She is my sister, my mirror, and I stole from her without asking. I stole the man she might have loved. And now I must live with the fear that he still loves her. The clutch forgotten, Emily closed the journal with a snap, her reflection in the vanity's mirror pale and stricken. The room seemed to close in around her, the air thick with the scent of wilted roses and spilled perfume. She wanted to march downstairs, thrust the journal into Sarah's hands, and demand the truth. But the thought of doing it in front of all those guests, with her parents beaming, with Daniel's family watching, it felt like tearing the entire celebration apart in one violent motion. She slipped the journal into her clutch instead, her fingers numb. When she rejoined the party, Sarah caught her eye across the room, smiling so brightly it almost hurt to look at her. Daniel was whispering something in her ear, his hand resting on her waist in a way that once, long ago, he had touched Emily. The sight made her stomach twist. Emily forced a smile, clinked glasses with cousins, laughed at jokes that barely landed. But her mind kept spinning back to the journal, its pages whispering in her memory. I stole from her without asking. I stole the man she might have loved. Later, when the night drew to a close and Sarah disappeared with Daniel in a flurry of laughter and petals, Emily drove home with the journal heavy in her lap, the headlights cutting through the darkness like a blade. She couldn't bring herself to put it down, couldn't decide if she should return it quietly or confront her sister head-on. Every time she thought of Sarah's vows, spoken with trembling sincerity only hours before, her chest ached with betrayal. Because now she knew the truth. The wedding was not a celebration of love freely chosen, but a fragile mask covering years of envy and fear. And Emily, unknowingly, was at the center of it. She pulled into her driveway and sat in the car long after the engine was off, rain beginning to tap on the windshield, her hands still gripping the leather cover. The journal felt alive, dangerous, as if inside it contained the power to unravel everything. Her bond with Sarah, her trust in Daniel, the image of the perfect family they had all worked so hard to preserve. She didn't know yet what she would do with it. All she knew was that nothing about her sister's wedding was what it seemed, and the real story had only just begun. Emily didn't sleep that night. The journal lay on her nightstand, its presence pulsing in the dark like a living thing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sarah in her dress, glowing beneath the lights, and then the words on the page twisting that glow into something hollow and false. She tried to convince herself that maybe it was just pre-wedding nerves, an outlet for cold feet, but the entries spanned years. That wasn't nerves. That was obsession, jealousy, fear. By dawn her head ached and her decision was clear. She needed answers. When she arrived at Sarah's house the next morning, Daniel's car was gone, the driveway damp from last night's rain. Sarah answered the door in a silk robe, her hair a tangled halo, her cheeks flushed with the afterglow of celebration. "Em, what are you doing here so early?" she said with a laugh, pulling her into a hug that smelled of roses and champagne. Emily stiffened in her arms, the journal like a stone in her purse. They sat at the kitchen table, coffee steaming between them. Sarah talked about the reception, how she couldn't believe it was over, how perfect everything felt. Emily forced smiles, her heart hammering with every word. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She slid the journal onto the table, its cover dark against the pale wood. Sarah's chatter died instantly. Her face drained of color. For a long moment she stared at it without touching, her hands clenching the edge of her robe. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "In the dressing room," Emily said. "You left it behind." Sarah's eyes flicked up, wide and panicked. "You read it." It wasn't a question. Emily swallowed, her throat dry. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that Daniel, that you thought he still—" She broke off, the words bitter in her mouth. Sarah's face twisted, equal parts shame and defiance. "Because it didn't matter. It doesn't matter now. He married me, Emily. He chose me." Emily slammed her palm against the table, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen. "You knew about us. You knew what happened between me and him. And you still what?" Sarah shot back, her voice shaking. "Still loved him? Still wanted him? You think I could just step aside because my sister had a crush? He wasn't yours, Emily. He never was. And maybe I was terrified he might look at you again. Maybe I hated myself for it. But I wasn't about to let you take him from me." The words cut deep, each one reopening an old wound Emily hadn't realized still bled. She pushed back from the table, her chair screeching against the floor. "You stole him, Sarah. You wrote it yourself. You stole him and you knew it." Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, but her jaw was set. "And you're not going to ruin this for me. Not now. Not after everything." She grabbed the journal, clutching it to her chest like a shield. Emily stared at her, fury and heartbreak tangling in her chest, then turned and stormed out, Sarah's voice chasing after her. "Don't you dare tell him. Don't you dare." Outside, the sun was bright, the neighborhood quiet except for the chirping of birds, but Emily felt like she'd stepped into a different world, one where every word, every smile from Sarah was laced with betrayal. She drove aimlessly for hours, torn between the urge to confront Daniel and the fear of detonating their family. Her phone buzzed with messages from Sarah, each one more desperate than the last. "Please don't say anything. You'll destroy everything. I didn't mean it the way it sounds. Daniel doesn't need to know. Please, Emily. Please." Emily ignored them. By evening she parked outside a bar on the edge of town, somewhere she wouldn't run into anyone she knew. She ordered whiskey and tried to drown the noise in her head, but it only grew louder. She saw Daniel in every shadow, Sarah in every reflection, and the journal's words gnawed at her until she felt hollow. When she finally stumbled out, the cool night air slapped her sober enough to realize she wasn't alone. A familiar voice called her name. Daniel. He was leaning against his car, arms crossed, his expression sharp with confusion. "Emily, what the hell is going on? Sarah's been calling me nonstop. She said you found something." Her heart lurched, panic racing through her veins. This was the moment, truth or silence. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Daniel stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "Emily, talk to me. What did you find?" She shook her head, words catching in her throat, but Daniel's eyes narrowed, suspicion darkening them. "This is about Sarah, isn't it? About us." The air left her lungs. He had said us. The single word confirmed everything the journal suggested, everything Sarah feared. There was an us still lingering between them, unspoken but alive. Emily's knees felt weak. She wanted to confess, to spill everything, but Sarah's voice echoed in her mind. Don't you dare. I can't, Emily whispered finally. Daniel's jaw tightened, his fists clenching. Then I'll ask Sarah myself. He turned to leave, and instinctively Emily reached for his arm. Don't, she blurted. He stopped, staring at her, his eyes searching hers. For a moment the world narrowed to the space between them, filled with all the words they hadn't said, all the history they had buried. And then he pulled away, got in his car, and drove off, leaving her trembling in the parking lot, the weight of her silence crushing her chest. That night Emily lay awake again, every muscle tense, knowing things had slipped beyond her control. She had opened a door that could never be closed, and now the secrets in that journal were no longer hers to keep or reveal. They were alive, moving between them, ready to tear apart the fragile web of love, envy, and betrayal binding the three of them together. And in her gut, Emily knew the unraveling had only just begun. The following morning, Emily woke to her phone buzzing on the nightstand, her head pounding from the whiskey and from the memories of Daniel's eyes when he said us. She dreaded looking, convinced it was Sarah again, but the screen showed an unfamiliar number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Emily, this is Claire. I'm Sarah's maid of honor. We don't really know each other, but I think we need to talk. Emily sat up, heart tightening. Claire's voice was nervous but deliberate, the kind of tone people used when holding back something dangerous. They agreed to meet at a small cafe in town. When Emily arrived, Claire was already there, stirring her coffee with shaking hands. She looked exhausted, her mascara smudged, her face pale. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. I wasn't sure you'd actually show. Emily slid into the booth across from her, wary. Why call me? Claire glanced around before leaning closer. Because Sarah isn't who you think she is. And I know you found that journal. Emily stiffened, gripping the edge of the table. How do you? She told me everything last night. She was hysterical. Said you were going to ruin her marriage, that you'd betray her. But the truth is, she's been betraying you for years. Claire's words sliced through Emily's fog. What do you mean? Claire's voice lowered even more. I was there when Sarah first met Daniel. You were with him back then, weren't you? She told me she didn't care, that she'd take him if she wanted. At first I thought she was just being dramatic, but then I saw the way she schemed. She manipulated every fight you and Daniel had, whispered doubts into his ear, always playing the innocent sister to you while feeding his insecurities. She wanted him, and she made sure she got him. Emily's stomach churned. Hearing it out loud, from someone else, stripped away the thin excuses she'd been clinging to. Claire continued, her fingers twisting around her coffee cup. I stayed quiet because she's my friend, and I thought maybe it would all work out. But last night, when she showed me that journal, I realized how deep it goes. She doesn't trust him, Emily. She doesn't trust you. She's terrified he'll leave her for you. And the way Daniel looked at you during the reception, I don't think she's wrong to be afraid. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. The cafe seemed to tilt around her. Why are you telling me this? Claire finally met her eyes, her expression torn between guilt and resolve. Because I can't keep covering for her. And because you deserve to know that Sarah isn't the victim she pretends to be. She's been playing all of us. And I think Daniel should know the truth. The words hung heavy between them. Emily felt both vindicated and horrified, a storm of rage and sorrow twisting inside her. She wanted to thank Claire, to scream, to cry, but instead she whispered, if I tell Daniel, I'll destroy them. I'll destroy everything. Claire shook her head. Sarah already destroyed it. You're just holding the match. Emily left the cafe with her mind in turmoil. The city streets blurred past as she walked, Claire's words echoing in her head. By the time she reached her apartment, her phone was ringing again. This time it was Daniel. Against her better judgment, she answered. His voice was tight, frustrated. Emily, we need to talk. Meet me at the park in an hour. The line went dead before she could respond. She knew what this was, the confrontation she'd tried to avoid. When she arrived at the park, Daniel was pacing near the fountain, his hands shoved into his pockets. He looked tired, worn down, but his eyes lit with intensity when he saw her. Sarah told me you found her journal. She's been spiraling ever since. What did you read? Emily's breath caught. This was the moment Claire had pushed her toward, the chance to rip the veil off everything. I read enough, she said carefully. Daniel's gaze darkened. Enough to know she still thinks I'm in love with you. Silence stretched. The fountain's steady splash filled the space between them. Emily's heart pounded. She forced herself to meet his eyes. And are you? Daniel's jaw clenched, his chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. Emily, I don't know what I feel anymore. All I know is that when you walked into that church yesterday, part of me couldn't look away. Part of me wondered what my life would have been if I had chosen differently. The confession hit her like a physical blow, all the air rushing from her lungs. She wanted to step toward him, to close the distance, but another part of her screamed to run. Daniel, she whispered, but the words tangled. He stepped closer, his voice low, urgent. Tell me the truth. Do you still love me? Her throat burned, her vision blurred. The years of silence, of pretending, of watching Sarah live the life that might have been hers. All of it pressed against her ribs until she thought she would break. Yes, she breathed, the word escaping before she could stop it. Daniel closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging with both relief and despair. God, Emily, what are we supposed to do now? But before she could answer, a voice cut through the air like a knife. So it's true. They turned to see Sarah standing on the path, her face pale, her hands shaking, tears streaking her cheeks. She clutched the journal in one fist, its pages crumpled from her grip. I knew it. I knew you still wanted her. Her voice cracked with fury and heartbreak. Emily's chest seized with panic. Sarah, wait. But Sarah's eyes blazed, her voice trembling with rage. You couldn't even let me have this. You couldn't let me be happy for one day. You've been waiting, both of you, waiting for me to fall so you could take him. Daniel stepped forward, his hands raised. Sarah, it's not like that. Don't, she screamed, her voice echoing through the park. People nearby turned to stare, but Sarah didn't care. Her whole body shook as she hurled the journal at Emily's feet, pages scattering across the path. If you want her so badly, Daniel, then take her. But don't you dare think I'll forgive either of you. She turned and ran, her sobs trailing behind her, leaving Emily and Daniel frozen in the ruins of what had just been revealed. Emily stared at the scattered pages, her chest heaving, realizing that the secret wasn't secret anymore. The journal had done its work. It had lit the fire, and now there was no way to put it out. The hours after Sarah's outburst were a blur Emily could hardly remember. She found herself back in her apartment, hands trembling as she replayed the scene at the park, Sarah's screams, Daniel's pale face, the journal scattering like broken glass across the path. Each detail replayed until her chest tightened and her throat burned. She wanted to call Sarah, to explain, but what excuse could ever fix this? She wanted to call Daniel, to hear his voice steady her, but that was impossible now too. For the first time since the wedding, she was truly alone. The phone rang again and again, but she ignored it, afraid of who might be on the other end. Sarah demanding answers, Daniel pleading, or worse, her mother calling to scold her for humiliating the family. She curled on the couch, whispering, I never wanted this. Though even she wasn't sure anymore if it was true. By morning her apartment door shook with urgent knocking. She dragged herself up, hair tangled, eyes raw. When she opened the door, Daniel stood there. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew, his expression hollow. He pushed past her without waiting for permission, collapsing into a chair at the table. Sarah's gone, he muttered. Emily's breath caught. Gone where? His hands scrubbed his face. She left the apartment last night. Packed a bag, left her ring on the counter. She's not answering anyone's calls. Her mother is panicking. Emily, she's disappeared. The words sliced through the fog of guilt and fear. Emily gripped the back of a chair, her knees weak. You think I don't know. Daniel cut in sharply, his voice ragged. She's angry enough to do anything. She told me she never wanted to see me again, but I didn't think she meant she'd vanish. Everyone thinks I pushed her away, that I was unfaithful. If she doesn't come back soon, there'll be whispers, then rumors, then... God, I don't even know. He buried his head in his hands. Emily stood frozen, the weight of it crashing down. Sarah was gone, and the last thing she had seen was her fiancé confessing feelings to her sister. In every direction the blame pointed to Emily. Daniel, she whispered, what do we do? His head lifted, his eyes red. We wait. And if she doesn't come back, then we have to tell the truth. Emily shook her head violently, panic surging. The truth will destroy us. It already has, he said bitterly. Days passed in a haze of tension. Emily kept her phone on her at all times, checking for a message from Sarah, a sign, anything. Neighbors whispered when she walked by, and friends avoided her gaze. It was as if the whole world already knew, already judged. Then, one night, the call came. An unknown number. She answered, heart racing. Emily. Sarah's voice was hoarse, brittle. Emily nearly collapsed with relief. Sarah, thank God. Where are you? Everyone's worried sick. Don't pretend you care, Sarah snapped. Her words were jagged, each one laced with venom. I just needed to hear your voice one last time. I'm not coming back. Emily's knees buckled. What are you saying? A cold silence, then Sarah's voice again, steadier, darker. You took everything from me. The only thing I had left was Daniel, and even he belongs to you. You don't need to worry about me anymore. By the time anyone finds me, it'll be too late. Panic surged through Emily's veins. Sarah, no, listen to me. I never wanted Daniel, not like this. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, just come back. We can fix this. I swear. But the line went dead. Emily screamed her sister's name into the phone, her body shaking violently. She dialed again, but it went straight to voicemail. She called Daniel, voice breaking as she relayed every word. Within an hour, the police were involved, combing through Sarah's bank activity, her last phone signal, trying to trace her steps. But Emily knew, deep down, that Sarah didn't want to be found. The days that followed were suffocating. Reporters sniffed around, spinning stories about runaway brides, jealous sisters, forbidden love. The journal became infamous, its pages copied and whispered about, though none of them knew the whole truth. Daniel's parents called Emily a curse, Sarah's friends blamed her outright, and even her own mother stopped returning her calls. The family that once stood behind her now turned away. One evening, Daniel arrived at her apartment again, looking gaunt, his eyes hollow. He carried the journal, its cover frayed, pages bent. He dropped it on her table with a heavy thud. I can't do this anymore, he said, his voice flat. Every page of this damn book is poison. It's ruined Sarah, ruined us. It's all we'll ever be now. A story about betrayal. Emily stared at the journal, the object that had detonated her life. She wanted to tear it apart, burn it, erase it. But when her hand brushed its cover, she froze, because she knew that even if the book vanished, the words had already carved themselves into their lives. What are you saying? She whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm saying it's over. Sarah may never come back, and even if she does, she'll never forgive us. And the world will never forgive us either. I can't carry this anymore, Emily. I can't carry you. The words struck like a blade, leaving her breathless. She wanted to beg him to stay, to remind him of what he'd confessed in the park, of the way he had looked at her, but the emptiness in his eyes silenced her. He turned, walked out, and didn't look back. Emily collapsed into the chair, her hands clutching the journal, her tears soaking into its worn pages. She thought of Sarah alone somewhere, broken and furious. She thought of Daniel walking away, leaving her with nothing but ghosts. And she thought of the final entry she hadn't dared to read yet, the one Sarah had written the night before the wedding, when doubt and fury and fear had consumed her. With trembling fingers, Emily opened the book, flipping to the last page, her vision blurring through tears. The words stared back, each line heavy with venom and despair. If Daniel leaves me, I'll make sure Emily never has him either. If I can't have happiness, then no one will. Emily's blood ran cold. She realized Sarah's disappearance wasn't just a flight of heartbreak, it was a threat. Somewhere, her sister was waiting, watching, ready to turn despair into vengeance. And Emily understood with horrifying clarity that the collapse wasn't complete yet. The worst was still to come. The days bled together after Daniel walked away, each one dragging Emily deeper into despair. She barely ate, barely slept, haunted by Sarah's final words and the venom of that last journal entry. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart lurched, hoping for Sarah's voice again, anything to tell her where she was. But silence ruled, until the night the silence finally broke. Emily was returning home from the corner store, a bag of groceries digging into her arm, when she felt it, that prickle on the back of her neck, the sense of eyes on her. She turned, scanning the street. Empty. Only the flicker of the lamppost and the hum of distant traffic. She told herself she was imagining it, paranoia born of exhaustion. But when she reached her apartment door and fumbled with the keys, a shadow shifted at the end of the hallway. "Sarah?" she whispered before she could stop herself. The figure stepped forward. It was her. Her sister, pale and gaunt, eyes burning with a fire Emily had never seen. She wore the same clothes from the wedding weekend, crumpled and torn, as if she hadn't changed in days. "Miss me?" Sarah's voice cracked into a brittle smile. Emily dropped the groceries, pins rolling across the floor. "Sarah, thank God, you're alive. Everyone's been terrified." "Don't," Sarah snapped, her smile vanishing. "Don't pretend you care. You and Daniel must have been so cozy while I was gone." Emily's throat tightened. "I swear, nothing happened, liar." Sarah's scream echoed through the hall, sharp and jagged. "I saw the way he looked at you. I heard what you said. You admitted you loved him. You want to take everything from me. Emily, you always have." Emily's legs wobbled, her hands trembling. "Please, just come inside. We can talk. I'll make you tea." But Sarah pulled something from her bag, and Emily's heart stopped. The journal, its spine bent, pages wrinkled, as if it had lived through storms. Sarah held it up like a weapon. "This is all that matters now. Your betrayal, his lies, my humiliation, it's all here. And tonight, the world is going to know the truth." "Sarah, please," Emily begged, stepping closer. "That book doesn't tell the truth. It only tells your pain. It twists everything into knives. But we can fix this. You can come home." "Home?" Sarah laughed, a sound so sharp it made Emily flinch. "There's no home left. You stole it. You stole him. You stole my happiness before I even had a chance to hold it." Her hands shook, the journal trembling. "So now I'm going to steal yours." Emily's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "Daniel's meeting me," Sarah hissed. "I called him, told him I'd give him one last chance to prove himself. And when he shows up, I'll make sure he never looks at you again. Not after I show him everything." Panic surged through Emily. She lunged forward, grabbing Sarah's wrist, desperate to stop her. "No, Sarah, you can't." Sarah shoved her back with surprising strength, sending Emily crashing against the wall. "Don't you dare try to stop me." Tears streaked her sister's face now, her voice breaking. "You ruined everything. And tonight, you'll watch me burn it all down." Before Emily could rise, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Daniel's voice called, "Sarah?" He appeared at the far end, breathless, his eyes widening as he saw the two sisters locked in their desperate struggle. "My God, what's happening?" Sarah turned, clutching the journal to her chest. "Daniel, finally, I knew you'd come." She staggered toward him, her words tumbling like shards of glass. "I've written everything, every lie, every betrayal. You need to know what kind of woman Emily really is." Emily scrambled to her feet, her voice raw. "Don't listen, Daniel, please. She's not well. She needs help." Daniel froze, torn between them, his eyes darting from Sarah's trembling figure to Emily's tear-streaked face. "Sarah, put the book down. Let's talk." "No." Sarah's scream pierced the air. "You'll only defend her. You always defend her. Even when she stole you from me. Even when she admitted she still loved you. You chose her in your heart. Don't deny it." Daniel's face twisted with anguish. "Sarah, I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you." "Then prove it." Sarah's hand shot out, shoving the journal toward him. "Read it. Read it all, and tell me you don't love her more than me." Emily stepped forward, her voice breaking into sobs. "Daniel, don't. If you open that journal, there's no coming back. It will poison you, the way it poisoned her. Please, choose us, not the pages." The hallway seemed to shrink, time stretching taut between them. Daniel stared at the journal, his hands trembling as Sarah thrust it into his chest. He could end it all by opening it, or refuse, and risk losing Sarah forever. Finally, he let the journal drop, its pages scattering across the floor. "No," he said, his voice trembling but firm. "I won't let words written in pain decide my life. I love you, Sarah, but I can't live in a prison of jealousy. And I can't deny what I feel for Emily either." Sarah's face crumpled, her knees buckling as she fell to the floor amid the scattered pages. Her sobs tore through the air, raw and shattering. Emily knelt beside her, reaching out, but Sarah shoved her away, her screams breaking into gasps. "Both of you. I hate you. I hate you." Daniel crouched, his hands hovering, unsure if he dared touch her. "We'll get you help, Sarah. Please, don't do this to yourself." But Sarah only curled tighter, clutching the torn pages of her journal as if they were the only pieces of her heart left. Emily watched, her own tears streaming, realizing the damage was irreversible. The truth was out, the love triangle laid bare, and nothing could ever make it whole again. In that moment she understood. The climax wasn't victory or resolution, it was devastation. They were all broken, all ruined, by the ink of Sarah's tortured words. The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of Emma's life, but as she stood in her dressing room, her hands trembling against the lace of her gown, she realized it was instead a battlefield. The journal lay closed inside her clutch, heavy as a stone. It wasn't just paper and ink anymore. It was the map of her future, drawn in her fiancé's own hand. And that map didn't lead to her. The music outside signaled that guests were being seated. Laughter echoed faintly, the kind of laughter she used to think belonged to family and friends, but now felt like a cruel chorus mocking her indecision. She thought of Liam's entries, the doubts about marriage, the passages where his words lingered far too long on Rachel's smile, Rachel's voice, Rachel's presence. Emma's throat tightened. Her best friend was sitting just rows away, smiling politely, pretending nothing was wrong, when Emma had read the proof that everything was. The door creaked open and Liam stepped in, dressed in his tuxedo. He looked breathtaking, but his eyes gave him away. Hesitant, uncertain, the same flicker she had noticed in the early weeks of their engagement, but brushed off as nerves. "Emma," he whispered, "are you ready?" Her voice broke before she could answer. "Ready for what, Liam? To marry a man who doesn't know if he loves me? To stand in front of everyone and pretend this journal doesn't exist?" She pulled it from her clutch, thrusting it toward him. His face went pale. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. Instead, he reached for the book with shaking hands, but Emma held it tight. "Why?" she asked, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Why propose to me if you felt this way? Why write these words and still put me in this position?" Liam sank onto the chair by the vanity, burying his face in his hands. "Because I wanted it to be real. I wanted to convince myself that I loved you enough to silence everything else. But every time I saw Rachel, I questioned. And every time I wrote, I hoped the writing would drain it out of me." The silence between them roared louder than the music swelling beyond the door. Emma felt both fury and heartbreak, two currents colliding inside her chest. She thought of Rachel, her friend since childhood, the one she trusted most, the one who should have been her maid of honor today. Rachel had excused herself, claiming nerves, but Emma wondered now if it was guilt. "Do you love her?" Emma asked, her voice sharp. Liam looked up at her, his eyes red. "I don't know. I don't know what I feel anymore. I know I've hurt you, and I hate myself for it. But standing here, about to lose you, it makes me realize what I stand to destroy." Emma's heart twisted. She wanted to believe him, wanted to erase the words she had read, wanted to be the bride who walked out smiling and radiant. But the journal's weight reminded her she had already seen too much truth. A knock rattled the door. "5 minutes," someone called. Emma inhaled shakily. Time was up. She had to decide. Her entire life would pivot on the choice she made in the next breath. She looked at Liam one last time, memorizing the way his uncertainty had carved lines into his face, the way his hands trembled as if he already knew her answer. Then she set the journal on the vanity between them. "You don't get to have both of us," she whispered. "And you don't get to break me with your confusion. I deserve someone who doesn't write doubts in secret, but speaks love openly." Liam reached out, but she stepped back, lifting the hem of her gown to keep it from brushing against him. She opened the door. Gasps from bridesmaids waiting outside filled the hallway as she walked past them, her veil trailing like a surrender flag behind her. Outside, the music had shifted to the wedding march. Guests rose in anticipation, all eyes on the empty aisle. The officiant looked confused. Rachel turned in her seat, searching, and then they saw Emma, walking not toward the altar, but away from it, past the rows of guests, past the stunned whispers, past the flowers and decorations that suddenly felt like part of a performance she no longer wanted to play. She didn't stop until she reached the open air. The cool wind caught her veil, tugging it free. Emma let it go. She walked barefoot across the lawn, her shoes abandoned, her heart shattering yet strangely lighter with every step. Behind her, chaos erupted. Liam's voice called her name. Rachel's chair scraped back, Family members muttered in shock. But Emma didn't turn around. The journal, the doubts, the betrayal, they all stayed inside that room. What came next would be hers alone. And though the pain burned deep, Emma knew this truth. Better to walk away in white than to live forever in lies.